Welcome everybody back to the AisleGo podcast.
One more time.
Thank you so much to Haley for coming back. It's been such an honor working with you and connecting with you over the past couple weeks, and I'm so excited to have you back for this episode. So I can't wait to dive into our topics, learn more about you and your photography business, as well as kind of see what's going on in the wedding world when it comes to photography and all that kind of stuff. So again, I'm Haley. I'm your host as always here at AisleGo, which is the world's first wedding booking app and payment gateway for the wedding and special events industry. So if you haven't already gotten a chance to check us out, please go to www.islego.com and check out our 4 couples and our 4 vendors page to kind of get all the insights and what we've been working on, and sign up for our email newsletter so that way you can get updates and see everything that we're working on. We're very excited about this. We can't wait to get it into your hands, and I'm sure as all the vendors in the world are anticipating something that's going to be revolutionary to the wedding and special events industry. So I'm super excited. But the topic today is photography.
Yes.
And I am so excited, like I said, to have Haley back here. Haley Mcdevitt, she owns Perennial, which is a photography and lifestyle brand. She's been in the wedding industry for how long now?
A few years, technically like 6 if I'm going the long game, but with my own solopreneurship, like 2 years.
Awesome.
Yeah.
So yeah, you're based out of Philadelphia, correct?
Yes,
Awesome.
correct.
Great. So let's hear a little bit more about Perennial. How did you create this like lifestyle brand of yours and your photography company, and what really got you into, pursuing the art of photography?
Yeah. It's such a long, as is like everyone's path, I think, if you try to like start from the beginning, it's so long, and there's so many key players that have played a role in that. And so I think, I guess I will just start from the start. About like 6 years ago is when I started. I met this photographer named Ryan Mack, and he was our family photographer, and he noticed that I had a way with the camera, had a way with like posing my little siblings, like, for our family photos, and he recognized that I guess I knew what I was doing with that realm, not necessarily like the camera, but anyway, he asked me if I would want to be a wedding assistant of his, like a photography assistant for big wedding days. So I was like, absolutely. I was like 17 or 18 at the time. And I was so excited. And then 6 months or so had passed. I started doing that with him. So all throughout college, I was studying marketing and doing weddings on the side, as well as like serving, doing like odd jobs. So the weddings really didn't become like a revenue driver for me until this past year or so. So I just took on as many wedding assistant jobs as I could, as well as like second shooting is what they call it. So basically just the next level up from an assistant for years. And then once I realized that, I loved doing it and it was like something that I really could do and that I was good at, I wanted to turn that into something more for me that could sustain. So it was like families at first, and then really a bit of everything, like graduation pictures, the typical like lifestyle photography, and now I'm morphing more into weddings and branding, just so I could support those clients, like the niche audience. I'm going all over the place, but yes, that more of like I want to niche into weddings and branding moving forward. So that's where I'm at.
Awesome.
Yeah.
And I do know, I was like, because you did say to me last year, you're going back to grad school, right?
Yes, yeah, and I finally, everyone knows, so I can talk about it more. So yes, I'm going back to grad school for my Master's of Business Administration, and I'll be doing that part-time and then pursuing this full-time now, which I'm really looking forward to, starting January, just a few weeks.
Awesome.
It's crazy.
I know. I mean, it's like we were just talking about earlier, it's like, December's right around the corner, and Christmas. I was like, I feel like I'm not even prepared. I don't even think I've finished my Christmas shopping yet, but we're getting there. So, I mean, I can totally feel you with the whole like bombardness of everything, and I congratulate you on all your success with especially your photography business and now becoming a grad student.
Thank you.
Because I know that's a struggle in itself. I know my best friend, she got her master's and she said it was a whole process.
I'm like now looking forward to it. No, I'm kidding. I think that it would be nice because it's since it's part-time, I'll be able to take one class at a time. So I'm not too worried about it. And now that I'll be able to do this, focus on this and not have to think about like a full-time gig, I'll try to budget better. I posted this recently. I made like a post to announce that I was going full-time, and in the bottom I put "New Year, New Me," and I wanted to make the caption like "New Year, New Me," right? Like quitting my job and
here you are
doing everything differently, like a whole entire lifestyle shift. But I had to do it.
But that's the goal. It's the American dream. We're here to live it.
Yeah, right. Sure. Be my own boss.
And going in with change and everything, we take this podcast as the opportunity to kind of express those changes within the wedding industry and kind of breach those topics. And obviously, you're our first photographer on here, so we kind of want to hear your insight on the whole outlook on the new generations, kind of their approach to when it comes to wedding planning. So, is there any tips and tricks that you do have for these, Gen Zers, as we call them, coming in, and I'm a Gen Z myself, and who are planning, in the process of planning their wedding, and they need these outlooks and these tips, and even these like for instance, AisleGo, we're like an app and all these planning tools and all that kind of stuff. Is there anything that you would have that would be beneficial to them when it comes to the planning process, to even know where to start?
Yeah, it's such a loaded topic, and I'm sure you guys have done plenty of research yourselves about like how much goes into the planning. And I would say, for starters, going in and approaching a wedding at this, as millennials or Gen Zers, I think what I've seen a lot of is people going with what they want to go with and not like the traditional way of doing weddings. And by that I mean just because your family is ginormous, or just because your mom or someone in your family might have their hands all over the planning and they want it to be a certain way, or because you've seen your friends do it a certain way, doesn't mean that you have to do that exact thing. And there's there's industry standards in photography, and there's also just expectations, I think, of brides and grooms and couples to do their wedding a certain way. So I would say to start, just really know what it is that you want to do and what speaks to you as a couple. Because for example, I have this couple, Brianna and Tyler, and they ended up switching their bigger wedding that was supposed to be in September 2023 to a smaller, more intimate ceremony and reception in April. And they made sure that I was available, and I was all for it, because they said the big, huge ballroom wasn't us, and we were doing something that wasn't for us. So them shelling their money out and investing in that didn't even feel fruitful, because they were they weren't, it wasn't really giving anything back to them other than stress and anxiety, because they didn't want all hundreds of people with their eyes on them. They just wanted it to be their closest people. So I think to start, just knowing who you are as a couple is so important, and really just doing what you want and not listening to even if it means the other thing is that some parents or families invest in the wedding too, so I get that it can get complicated, but just really trying to have those conversations in the beginning. And then as far as planning, it's such a big one. I have seen weddings with planners and without planners, and with coordinators and without, and some venues come with coordinators and some do not. So I would just say from the get-go, you basically book your wedding venue first. So I would say ask all those questions to the venue itself, because they probably will have those contacts for you. I hope that's a good start. I know you probably have follow-up questions, so please help guide me with these questions.
No, and I love that. And I love that idea of and I do agree with you. I do feel like you have to identify what you want as a couple.
Yeah.
And we go back to the whole trends nowadays of not even nobody's doing the big couples or the big ceremonies. I'm sorry.
Yeah, it's rare. And if they do, it's just, it's still totally acceptable and just as much fun. But if that's what they want, then that's what they should do.
That's how I look at my wedding. I'm I don't want a 200-person wedding. I was one, I can't afford that.
Yeah.
But two, I was I don't want the whole hubbub of having to please everybody for my wedding. I feel it's so important that it's about you and your significant other and things that you feel are important on your wedding day.
Absolutely.
So, and I do think that is a great advice to go forth with people who are looking to plan their wedding and take these strides in the next couple of years, because tradition's overrated. We don't want to do that anymore. We don't want to do that anymore.
Right? You don't want to have a cookie cutter wedding.
Of course.
I don't want any of my photos to feel like they're cookie cutter either. Of course. So.
And I'm big on that. And I'm big on the whole photography aspect, because like I've always said to people, I was photography I feel is a really big aspect when it comes to a wedding. And picking the right photographer, it goes hand in hand with the whole planning process.
Mm-hmm.
So I guess where do you stand in the whole way of when people come to you and they're I want you for my wedding. So what are like the important questions that you feel like couples should ask when trying to look for a photographer and find that correct style that they want, and those important questions, because I know that there's always the timing, the timeline, what shoot like photos do they want? Like, is there anything that you would suggest to people in that sense of
like how to find the right fit for you?
Like who would you like? How do you get somebody to be or how do you become somebody's photographer?
Yeah, I would say number one, you do spend the planning between booking a wedding photographer and getting to the day. Obviously it depends on how far away your wedding is. Let's say it's a 10-month turnaround, which is pretty rare. It's usually like a year plus, or maybe even 2 years. If you have a shorter amount of time, obviously those checkpoints are, I guess, there's less time between them, so you talk to them more. But more so, you do have them there with you the whole day, in your face, like part of your most intimate moments of the day, right? Like they are basically attached to your hip the whole time. If they're not doing the candids of like the reception, of course, like you have to get along with them. So I think that like the main thing that when someone comes to me, and if they say you're my dream wedding photographer, obviously that's like the best feeling in the entire world, and that probably means that they like my style, but I also want to make sure that they like me and that I like them, And so I would say like getting to know your wedding photographer just on a personal level, just to have like a 15-minute conversation, or just like if you do love their style and you love their work, then like hopping on a call with them, or just maybe poking around on their Instagram, seeing what they put out in the world to make sure that you think that you'd be a good match for each other. Because like I said, if you are comfortable with your photographer, odds are you'll feel comfortable in your photos, and that will show. So that's important to me, that I get to know my clients right away. And then the other thing is like other questions to ask. I've had some brides, and mostly brides are the ones taking the lead of these calls, because we are the planners, and most of the time. So I've had some brides ask like really great questions, right? They might say like, how many weddings have you shot? Or what would you call your style? What would you call your editing style, right? A lot of those things. But I think that the most important questions to me, to make sure that I'm a good match for someone, and to make sure that a couple is finding their right photographer, is what is your approach to shooting a wedding day? And that, I think, gives you so much more valuable information than just like your Instagram, like someone's Instagram might show you, or testimonials are super important, but I do think that the approach to a wedding day is super, reigns supreme, at least to me. And so, for example, rather than focusing on a shot list and making sure I get, the Louis Vuittons, although they're a huge part of your day, if you want them photographed, fine, I'll make sure of that. But I'm not focused on like a pair of shoes that's like a still shot. I'd rather get the shoes on your body. You know what I mean? Or like get the dress on your body, because that's really what you're going to be wearing, the dress anyway. So yeah, I think that just knowing the difference between like trusting a photographer to get the important things, and knowing the balance of like what they actually aim to get for you, and understanding that, and making sure it aligns with what you need and what you expect of your wedding gallery.
And I love that. And I was like, and I agree with like, I'm all about candids myself. So I was like, I live for the candid shot when it comes to anybody taking pictures of me. And I always feel like I like those ones better, because the posed ones just never work out for me. I'm like, oh, I look like that. I was like, are you kidding
and then you're thinking so much about like, how does my arm look? Or like, does my face look funny doing this pose? Or like, where am I looking? I don't like to pose really. I just kind of like to get those in between.
You're like the
ones.
natural kind of how it is. Yeah. And that's kind of like how my mom's wedding, we had a photographer that was very like candid oriented. She focused a lot of like on newborn photography, but like she loved just like capturing the moment and like actually getting like those real genuine feelings and all that kind of stuff. And that really does portray in a lot of your photography that I've seen on your website, which is absolutely amazing.
Thank you.
So if you haven't already, please go check out Haley's website. She has a wonderful gallery, a wonderful couples gallery. Her wedding gallery is spectacular. I do love the little picture of the girl sitting on the ground with all the beer bottles around her. Like, it really just captures the story.
It's so inappropriate to some people, but I'm like, whatever. She wasn't drinking them, clearly. She's just on her phone, ignoring the crowd.
But I do feel like that does bring out a lot of your personality as well, because it's like, okay, well, I'm going to put that funny picture on my website.
Yeah, so. And it's like one of the banner images. I'm like, this is what you're going to get. I mean, and shout out really quick to Sasha at Daring Creative, who did the website. Her creative team is just amazing, and she really made all the pieces come together. So wanted to give her a shout out. Yeah.
Yes, you do. Your website is awesome. Your branding is spectacular. So
All Sasha.
Did a wonderful job on that.
My queen.
Love it. So yeah, I mean, we're going back to like the whole like confidence things. I know you say you don't like to pose too much, but like how as like, and I always wonder this too because I am terrible behind a camera. I mean, I'm in front of a camera right now, but I feel like in the most part, I'm gonna look back on this and be like, why did I do that? So what is your approach to like kind of easing the tension when it comes to a wedding day for somebody who's not necessarily like camera? What is that?
Who's more camera shy,
yeah,
or who?
Like, how do you get the confidence built up? Like, how can we get the camera confidence to show through and kind of just let that, play out and let them be themselves?
Yeah,
I feel like that's important as well.
I've learned a few tricks, and so at first I did this just based on experience and like, I guess observation of other photographers and just like learning as I go. But I do think that what has benefited me most, recently I purchased this, it's called Superfeel. Superfeel is the company. Mm-hmm. And what they do, they have these booklets of prompts for different types of photography. Couples, families, solo branding portraits. I think that's really it. Those are the main categories. So I looked at what they were offering. I think I heard them on a podcast at first, and then I like bought the Superfeel prompts. So that's really one of my secrets, is that rather than posing and looking at a Pinterest image and trying to recreate it to like make someone look the exact same, I'd rather lean into prompts, something like what's a good example? One of the ones I always use that works without fail, it's really silly. They have different categories too. So the first tier is like laugh out loud. You ease into it by laughing because people will only trust you once they've laughed with you, right? Like, you're not going to cry with me first, you're going to laugh with me first. So in order to get those emotions out, I have to first like get the jitters out and make people laugh. So the first is laugh out loud. The second, I think, is warm and fuzzy, which like eases into like the deep and emotional. So like the deep and meaningful. So they walk you through these prompts, and that's exactly what I'll do during a shoot for, say, like an engagement shoot. So what I do is I first meet them and I try to embody how I want them to feel. So rather than being like, hey guys, so we're gonna do this, and I'm like not jumpy, I'm just kind of like, okay, let's just act like we're on a date and I'm not here, right? Like, I'm just your third wheel today, and I know that they're nervous because I've also been on that other end, like for couple photos, and even as a photographer, I got nervous, right? So I know that it must be a jarring feeling to like be posing for a photographer. So I meet them and say like, this is just a date. I just want you guys to be together and be present. Don't worry about, the poses. Don't worry. Just trust the prompts that I say, and they're going to sound so ridiculous sometimes, and you just have to do them. So, and it's always funny working with guys too, because I always will challenge them, because I think that for girls, obviously like girlies love photos, and then like for guys, usually it's like their worst nightmare. Like dads on a family photo shoot day, it's like the worst thing that their wife could ever do to them.
I can only imagine.
Yeah. So, so for guys, I like to try to like challenge them in the beginning and say like, I'm going to make you do something silly and you just have to listen to me. And then they just like laugh. One of them is I make them, it's called the mind reading game. I make them look at each other, like they could put their arms around each other like this, hug, they could hold hands, whatever. I make them look at each other and I say, you're going to read each other's minds and think of the same exact color right now, but you can't say what it is. So they think of a color. I'm like, go ahead, mind read. And then one of the things that I add in there is I say, and if you get this, the goal is to think of the same color. If you get the same color, obviously you're bound for a great marriage. And if you don't, then you're probably screwed. Like just to set the scene that like it's not that serious, and we could get good pictures. So then they giggle already. So I make sure to have the camera ready. And it's not about the color, it's about how ridiculous it is. So like they're giggling already, they're looking at each other like, what is she saying? And then I say on the count of 3, you're gonna say the color. 1, 2, 3. Almost every time they say blue, and like usually they'll get it, and they think that they just like hit the lottery. Like they're like, oh my god, like they got the same color. And so I have these photos of them like looking at each other with like their mouths wide open, or like one like throwing their head back because they're like, oh my god, like we both got blue. And then like even if they don't get it, like one's like black, one's like yellow, it's like, hey you idiot, like I thought you would say yellow, it's my favorite color. And then they're like actually just conversing.
I love that.
So that's one really good example, and I use it every single time. It's usually always my first one that I try. It gets the nerves out. It shows them that like they can laugh, and I don't have to be like, okay, now fake laugh. That's like my biggest pet peeve because people are like,
and it's not true. There's no genuine expression on there. No. I love that. Honestly, I've never heard of that before.
It's like, honestly, that company, I owe them like so much. I would have paid like tenfold what they charged me for those prompts.
I love that.
But that's just an example. And you can always find those prompts. Like for other photographers looking, you could find them. There's ideas online. You could find them for free. There's tons of resources out there. So yeah, I always start with that.
Cool. But I do. I was like, I love that. It's such a cute little idea. Like, I'm gonna have to if you're not my photographer on my wedding day, I'm gonna have to get you out there to do it for me.
I hope that I am. So I know you asked like, what are the other ways? There are other ways. And on a wedding day, it's obviously a bit different because you don't have as much time. But I would just say like the relationship that I build with them over time, such as the engagement shoot, which is always included in my packages for weddings, because I like to just have that in the beginning and get to know them first. And then on a wedding day, if for example I'm just meeting, I've never just met someone on a wedding day. Actually, I lied. Only once did I do that, and it was like they needed someone last minute. But for the most part, I go and we've already talked, and I set the scene in the same way, but just have to do it in like a condensed time, basically.
I gotcha.
Yeah.
I love that. That's awesome.
Thanks.
So I will take the time to kind of let you explain like how, if somebody does want to book with you, what would be your process and how they can do that, because obviously we want to get your social media out there, get everybody a chance to check you out, and get your work out there because it's phenomenal.
Yes.
So how, if you wanted to book Haley, how can they do that?
Yes. Okay. So you could find me on perennialfields.com. That's the best way to book me. There's a contact page where I have different forms laid out for weddings, couples, and branding. So that's the main services I'm booking right now. You can do surprise proposals, engagement sessions, whether that's within your wedding package or out, I could do them. Weddings of all kinds, destination weddings, elopements, I'm looking to like do all of it. And then branding is something that I'm working on. I'm gonna amp up those services a bit more next year because now I have more free time. Mm-hmm. But branding is really for whether it's like personal headshots for your business or a personal venture you're having, or like a small creative kind of business. Not so much corporate headshots or like, something that I would just go and like click the camera, more like interactive sort of branding help is what I'll be focusing on. So yeah, my website is really just where I send everyone.
I love that, and I do. Going back to your website, love your website.
I really am obsessed with it. It feels so good to be like so proud of it now, because it used to like, not that I was embarrassed of my other one, I DIY'd it and it wasn't that great. I shouldn't have DIY'd it, but I also was just starting out. So like you have to start somewhere. But I knew that it was time to invest, and Sasha really did deliver. She's the best.
She did. So I have to ask, because I love this picture that is on your website. And
which one?
Going back to it, I was like, I need to know the story behind this, because it just shows so much emotion with her reading this letter. And obviously this is probably from her husband, right?
Yes. Yeah.
And I love that.
That's such a good question. So this is just, so if you've never been married before, which we haven't, usually what happens is almost always there's a day of letter, it's called, or like a day of gift that is exchanged. And whether you think that that's like bogus or not, or you think that it's ridiculous, I do think that it's incorporated more often than not. And it's not a requirement, but I do think it's such a special moment to carve out in the morning. And I do always recommend that clients do that. So it's just you read, we set aside the time, whether it's before you're in your dress or after, or your makeup's on, it's not, you're about to run, like you're rushing and you're about to rush out, you get that moment to yourself to like read a letter from your person before you're about to be married. Mm-hmm. And it's kind of just like obviously everyone's different. Sometimes they don't cry at all. Sometimes you're just like, oh, that idiot, haha, and like they'll just laugh and the photos are still so genuine. Mm-hmm. But other times like they can get deeply emotional. And so it's always an honor like being there, because you're alone with the bride or the groom, and they really get to just like sit there with themselves. Sometimes videographers will actually have you read the letter out loud if that's part of like their voiceover of the video of the final product, and other times you could just kind of read it to yourself. For my purposes, they just read it to themselves. Mm-hmm. So yeah, that was just a really beautiful moment of a really emotional day, and
I could tell.
Yeah, it was definitely a very heavy moment, but so beautiful. That couple was awesome.
Oh, I love that. No, you don't do videography either, no?
No. I do have like friends that do it, so I would just recommend, people that I've worked with that I love, but yeah, maybe eventually. I'm trying to get my boyfriend to do that. Like, we could just have a powerhouse company. Like, why don't you learn how to do videography?
Tag team.
Yeah, right?
Let's do this.
Like, family business. Let's go. And he's just like, not the camera type.
Now, even going back to this, I mean, this is like one of the shoots that I always feel like some people like love these moments at their wedding day.
Yeah.
And I've always have this very wishy-washy feeling of doing a first look.
Oh yeah, okay, let's talk about it.
Super very wishy-washy about it. And my reasoning behind it is, I've heard the reasons as to why people do a first look is to kind of get rid of those bridal party photos, like, after your ceremony. So you can enjoy your cocktail hour with your friends and family, mingle a little bit, get a little bit more downtime, because obviously you're spending the money. You want to enjoy it.
Yeah.
And I understand that. But then there goes the people. I was like, I like the idea too, because it does give you that genuine moment with your husband to have it not in front of all of your family and friends, and gets a little bit one-on-one and that personal connection and kind of see that real true emotion because you guys are by yourself. But I'm traditional, and the whole aspect is like, I want my husband to cry at the end of that aisle in front of everybody. His eyes out. In front of everybody. So he just gets embarrassed in front of his whole family. My mom's crying. My dad's over there bawling his eyes out doing something. But I was like, and I want that reaction. And I don't know. That's just how I feel about it.
Yeah.
And, I've had a lot of photographer friends that I've known that, like, really love the idea of it. And they love to see the different ways that it's implemented, with like a first touch, not even like seeing each other, or, with the whole letter thing, like getting those true intimate moments. So I don't know how you feel about it, but
yeah,
but, like, that's my outlook on the whole thing.
Yeah. So first I want to say that, like, at the end of the day, what I always recommend is just like doing what you want. And I will just be completely frank if I believe that the timeline's going to be super crunched because of it, or maybe it won't be. A few different things that I would rely on are like, I guess, like, external factors that also come into play, like logistically, time of day, season. So if it's winter and your ceremony's at 5:00, then you have zero time outside for daylight pictures, for example. And if that's something that you still would rather not prioritize, then fine. Like, I might be a little bit stressed about it inside because I'm like, I don't know if I have enough photos, but if that's your day that you'd want to have, then, like, that's what I have to deliver, I recently had a wedding. It was honestly one of my favorite weddings of all time, but one of the most stressful because it rained. It was November 11th with this dream couple, Maggie and Mark. I love them so much. They've become, like, really good friends. It rained from start to finish. It was like a monsoon that day. It was absolutely insane. I mistakenly didn't bring an outfit, thinking, like, I'll be fine, I won't be outside much. I went from my car to the ceremony and was drenched, and I had an umbrella. Like, it was absolutely unreal. They did not have a first look, and so, like, that's another part that was stressful. I didn't have any photos outside of them. I only had photos inside of of Maggie with her bridesmaids. And, we got some of Mark outside because, like, it didn't really matter so much if he got wet because he could just kind of, like, throw gel in his hair and be fine. Mm-hmm. But what ended up happening was just, like, these candid, real moments that describe the story over the day, even though the sun had set. Outside was maybe 15 minutes, like a 15-minute window, because they really wanted to get to their cocktail hour too. Cool. So I wanted to make that possible for them. Let's say they had a 4:30 ceremony, a 6 o'clock. No, I think it was maybe like a 4:30 ceremony or 3:30 ceremony and like a 5:30 cocktail hour, something like that. We had 2 hours, but it was a full Catholic Mass. Oh, wow. So we had a really quick window or basically no window at all, and they wanted to get to their cocktail hour ASAP. So, like, something like that, it's nearly impossible for me to, like, guarantee them that they could be at their cocktail hour at 6 if they want any semblance of pictures alone. So what I did that day, I was just really honest with them. They wanted their entire bridal party to get out and get pictures, but we already did all of that in the church. So I said to them, I was like, listen, I'm just going to be honest with you. I think that this should just be about you two. We have 15 minutes to get pictures. I can get you some good ones. I just, I really think that this is what you should prioritize. So sometimes it just comes down to, like, rolling with the punches that day if it's raining, or just being honest with them. And if you've already built that trust with your photographer, then you should kind of just, like, lean into that, is, like, what I would say. Some photographers are like hell-bent on saying one way or the other, and that's totally up to them. I will make it happen for you. It's just that like I might just like be internally dying if I'm like, oh my god, we only have like 5 minutes to take pictures. But like magic can happen that way, and I hate to be like the magic can happen, candidly, but on our way, I had clear umbrellas ready for them, and I had my second shooter, Darby, with me. She helped a lot with the creative behind it, and we went up this alleyway. We found string lights between like these stores that was adorable in Doylestown, and then on the way back, we actually walked by an ice cream store. We went in, we got a free ice cream cone. They each got vanilla ice cream cones, and then we just had them sit and act like they were on a date at an ice cream shop. So that would have never happened because we didn't even plan that, right? So things can really happen. Organic things can happen if whether you have a first look or not, but that's another message to just not be stressed if it rains, because like everything will be fine, right? Like your day is your day. It probably rains 1/3 of all days, 2/3 of all days in Pennsylvania in the entire year. So like if you're a Pennsylvania couple, sorry. So yeah,
no luck there, but hey, they say that's good luck. So
yeah,
everlasting love on your part with those two.
Right.
I love that. No, it's so true. I mean, for what people have to do, they like the expectations and everything, and I think that's such a versatile role as a photographer, is being able to manipulate, be fast on your feet, and those sort of things too.
Yeah.
So I mean, that is awesome.
Yeah, just don't have a first look, sis. Just make him cry.
I was like, make him cry. I want to see that. I love that.
I know that Brendan and I will probably get married. I don't know when homeboy will ever propose, but
you hear that?
Yeah, right. So no, but I don't think he's not a crier at all. Like I've seen him shed one single tear, and it was at a funeral. Like he's not going to cry regardless. And I think that he'd probably make fun of me if I asked for a first look. So I might as well just do like whatever I want. I'm like, I'll just drag him along. You know, we'll have to just see what works for the day. But it really should be customized to like what you're expecting, and just ask your photographer like, well, what can you do if this is my non-negotiable, right? And they'll give you your options.
I do. I was like, my boyfriend's the same way. He's like, he's like, I will cry. He's like, there's 2 days in our whole lives together. If we ever get married, it's when you walk down the aisle, and then the second is when you have my children. So I said, okay, I'll be waiting for those days. So, and if you don't cry when you're at the end of the aisle,
just fake it. Honestly, fake it for the photo. Just tell him, like, just maybe grab like a tissue or like his little like pocket. The pocket hanky.
The
pocket hanky. Just like blow a snot. It'll be good. It'll be good for the photos, and your kids will think that he was a real crier.
Like, she was beautiful.
God, she took my breath away. I had to turn my eyes.
So full of it. I do. I love that. So we're gonna like wrap it up here a little bit. We got a couple minutes just to kind of go over a little bit more things. I think the one topic I just want to say, if somebody is getting into wedding photography, what's your advice to them, starting off and getting ready to go? Yeah,
I would say number one. Oh, there's so many things. I wish I had like a notepad or like a marker board. Number one, don't be afraid to put yourself out there and ask other photographers. I'm one, for example. I'd be happy to help you. And there's like community pages on Facebook. There's one called Philadelphia Wedding Photographers that I joined right away. And there's no judgment there, really. I mean, like some assholes, a-holes, sorry if I can't curse, might judge and like be mean, but it's really rare that anyone's super... that they wouldn't be supportive of you. And almost always I see like a billion people being like, oh, I can lend a helping hand, or like, here's a store I love to go to. Like, just find your community right away. And I hate to say like, just go find a community, or like find some friends who are in the space, but like really just ask around. Like if you even go on Instagram and say like photographer near me, or like your type of wedding photographers near me, you can just DM them. And if they can't help, then most often they will reach back out. So number one, just like having people there to like ask those questions to, because I really the last few years have been like a blur, and there's some things that I wish I would have done differently from the beginning. And I think I DIY'd so much of it that I kind of like wasted time, but I learned a lot. The second thing would be then to think about really how serious you are about it. If you're ready to invest money in equipment and in education / like consulting help. So I had the advantage of like knowing I had a good camera that I practiced on. I knew that I loved taking pictures, and I had all of that practice in college when I was just doing weddings on the side and kind of like putting them, like pocketing the knowledge and like learning from that. So I knew that it was a passion of mine. So I would say like explore a lot and really know that you want to do it, and you're not just like, you know, obsessed with this new hobby and you're going to like spend thousands of dollars. Second, the best decision that I made, and this was not until like January of this year, was hiring LegalZoom to do all of my legal paperwork. So if you're ready to then take the step from going to like freelance, you know, under the table sort of work, like, you know, a few $100s here and there, not really reporting anything, to then, and I always fear like the IRS, as if the IRS is like watching me at all times. I feel like they have me like bugged. But no, like if you start out, you obviously don't report anything because you're just like, it's just like cash, right? Mm-hmm. If you're ready to take the jump, if you realize that like there actually is traction here and you can get your own wedding client, then you really start have to thinking about the legal aspects, and soon. Mm-hmm. And I would 100% recommend LegalZoom, because I tried to do the paperwork and I felt like such an imposter. I would go on like government page to government page and go into like loops and just cry at my computer at like 1 a.m. and being like, I'm so dumb. Like, how do I become a photographer? Like legally.
Oh, no.
And so I hired LegalZoom, and it might have been like $2,000 or $3,000. I'll be real. Like it was a lot, a big investment, but 100% worth it. I got this binder of like all the paperwork I needed, things like that, like really asking around about like who can do things better than you, and don't think that you have to DIY everything. Mm-hmm. And then third, I guess just like once you have that community, once you have the framework, you have to start assisting and second shooting before you really start to like feel comfortable on a wedding day. So don't think that, I mean, you could shoot your friend's wedding maybe for $500 if you're good with the camera and she wants to throw you a bone, and that's fine. And that could be what you want to do. That's really anxiety inducing for me. So I would say like second shoot, try to get some gigs. You could post that out there and say like, hey, I'm available on Fridays and Saturdays if anyone needs someone, willing to shadow for free, anything. You have to start like pretty low, like any industry, and then you just work your way up, and then you'll start to like have confidence enough to book your own weddings and show up for them.
I love that. Awesome.
Yeah.
Well, thank you. Thank you for that advice. That was awesome advice.
Yeah.
And to all you inspiring photographers, I hope that you will reach out to Haley.
Yeah, please
and
do.
You know, get her contact information, see what she's all about, maybe assist her on a wedding day, or as a second shooter on a wedding day. I'm pretty sure, I bet you need all the help you can get.
Yeah, right? You guys can carry my bags, you can set up my light stands, whatever you want to do. No.
Be like the caddy and Billy Madison.
Yeah, right?
Here you go.
I need a caddy, actually, to transfer all of my equipment from ceremony to reception. Thanks.
I love that. Awesome. Well, thank you so much for joining us today. I am really happy that we were able to do this again with you. And, you know, hopefully down the road, once we establish a little bit more here with our podcast, we'll be able to get you back on, kind of cover a little bit what you've been up to, because obviously you're going into grad school, and kind of catch up with you there. Yeah. So thank you so much. Again, everybody, if you get the chance, please check her out. It's perennialfields.com. You can see all of her work. Like she said, she does weddings, couples, all of that fun stuff. So from all of us here at AisleGo, I will just say, if you haven't already, like she said, to get into a community group of wedding professionals, you can also join our AisleGo wedding page for wedding professionals in Bucks County and Philadelphia. If you haven't so already, that gives you a chance to connect with vendors in your area, like Haley, as well as others. And also be connected to a lot of our vendor meets that we're going to be hosting in the next couple of months. Our next one is actually January 12th at 6 to 8 p.m. At the Falls Banquet in Morrisville. So go ahead and check out that page. If you haven't joined, check out the event. It's going to be awesome. We have a great turnout for next month. I'm really excited. We already have a good amount of people coming. So feel free to check that out. AisleGo also has some great news coming up for you guys, so be on the lookout for that, as we might actually be in the works of getting it onto your cell phones. Yay! So we're super excited for that, so please make sure that you keep a lookout for it. And if you have any questions for us or for Haley, please feel free to reach out. Until next time, every Wednesday we'll be putting out our podcast, so stay tuned. Thank you.